Hi, I'm Alex. Welcome to week 2, episode 2 of the Wedding Setup Business School, How to Start a Wedding Setup Business. In this episode, we're going to talk about the things you actually need in order to get this business off the ground, and a couple of the things that you don't need. So, starting with that, one common misconception is that you would need a large amount of inventory, a garage full of boxes in order to get started with things that you may set up at the wedding. That is not true. This is a service-based business. We are selling and offering the services we can already do, which is intaking of materials, getting a clear scope of work, and the ability to effectively organize and execute that scope of work based off of our dealings and communication with the client and the coordinator, okay? The things that you will need in order to get this business started. 1, you are going to need to be a legally registered business entity in your state. You can look up the best ways to do this for yourself. I personally went with an LLC, and you can get out the door for that with $130, depending on the state that you're in. Now, 1, yes, that allows you to operate as a legal business in the state. 2, that allows you to get business insurance, which is the next thing you're going to need. You may not think you need insurance yet. However, most, if not all, venues are going to ask for what is called a COI. That is a certificate of insurance proving that you do have that business insurance, and they need that in order for you to legally operate at their venue. And they need that because their insurance requires it. It covers you, it covers them, and you can get that from anywhere from $20 to $100+ a month, but we're sticking on the low end here, and we are legally getting you out the door for less than $200 to get this business off the ground. Pretty easy, right? Take maybe 2 hours of your time to figure all that out. And then you move on to the things that you need for your personal location, yourself, and putting yourself out there with the business. The putting yourself out there part, that is going to be 1, a simple one-pager website with a picture, a little bit about yourself, and the services that you offer, i.e. wedding ceremony and reception flip, intake of DIY decor, logistical support, all right? Clear client communication, breakdown services. Those are just a few of the starter service offerings that you can have, all right? The second thing for putting yourself out there is a social media page. Just one for the business to start, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you're most comfortable using, just start with that. Keep it simple at first. And that is to show proof of work, maybe some behind the scenes stuff. This is going to get the clients comfortable with you, but also be a nice visual display of your services. And it's going to give you a place to put all the pictures that you take at your first event. So what do we have? We have legal entity structure, okay, less than $200 with that certificate of insurance, a simple website, and 1 social media page to start. You can do all of that in a day if you're really motivated, or you could do it over the course of a week if you're really busy. Either way, those are the simple, necessary things in order to get started. Now, if you do purchase anything besides that, your first purchases should be tools in order to effectively execute the job. They should not be inventory. They should be basic hand tools, screwdriver, pocket knife, scissors, double-sided tape, zip ties, fasteners. A lot of these things you will realize over the course of the job, but I will also instruct you over the weeks of videos that we have. But your first purchases, besides the ones already discussed, should be functional tools that help you get the job done. We are selling our ability, like I said, to execute and organize. In this type of business, your systems are a lot more valuable than any inventory will be. And what do I mean by systems? I mean clear client communication from the start. That involves a clear client questionnaire, an amazing first detail phone call to get your initial scope of work, an amazing second detail phone call closer to the wedding date to get a final scope of work. Now, what is a scope of work for anybody who doesn't know? That is just your list of all of the details and work that you are going to be responsible for on that day. And you're going to get that from clear client communication and clear vendor communication between yourself and the wedding planner or coordinator. So you are going to want to keep those two lines of communication open and constant leading up to the event. Now, it being a wedding setup business, sometimes you're going to get booked a year out. That's okay. You're going to want to have reminders and set yourself up for success by keeping those lines of communication open, updating yourself and the client on any details, and keeping yourself updated on the vision for that day. That being said, some things that will help you stay organized and effective and keep things simple leading up to the event day are a couple email templates and reminders set to your Gmail or whatever email provider you use. Reminders to touch base with the clients 30, 60, 90 days out, to touch base with the coordinator and get any vendor contracts that might be relevant. One of those might be contracts from a copy of the contract from the rental company. The rental company is the company that the client, aka the bride and groom, or the mother and father of the bride and groom, are renting their tables, chairs, plates, etc. from. You want a full understanding of things that are being set up by other people, because if it's not getting set up by somebody else, it's likely going to fall under one of the services you can offer. Because as the service business and selling ourselves, we are not only selling our knowledge of the venue and the vendor and the ability to bring decor there that day and the day, we are also selling the ability to set up and move other decor or rental items that are provided by the couples and the rental companies, okay? So you want a full understanding of things that are not being set up by other people so that we can wrap that into our scope of work, our pricing, and our checklist. Which brings me to my next point about systems being more effective than inventory for our particular business. Now, systems you are going to want in place leading up to the wedding day. The next thing that you will need is the timeline of the wedding or the event from the coordinator/planner, a checklist of everything that you're responsible for, which comes after that detailed call with the client leading up to the wedding day. You're going to make a checklist of your full scope of work, any items you're bringing, anything not being set up by the rental company that they're just dropping off that you are also in charge of setting up. Keep in mind, you're not usually in charge of breaking that down unless it's provided by the client. And then, of course, on that checklist, times of when events are happening throughout the day. You want to have a hard start time and a hard stop time for everything that you're doing. And then a full checklist in between that to make sure that you and whatever crew you may bring that day are getting it done in a timely and efficient manner so that everything is perfectly prepared as per the vision by the time the wedding party goes to ceremony, sits down at reception, and is ready to party at the end of the night. In addition to the timeline and the checklist, things you may need depending on the size of the event, you might need to hire 1 or 2 people to be your crew. At first, that might be a friend, maybe somebody you've worked with before, and as time goes on, you will realize who is good and adequate and who is not good at helping you out on these days. Now, a reliable mode of transportation is also something wonderful to have for transporting decor there, transporting it back. And if you do not have a reliable mode of transportation, that's also all right. That just means that whoever you hire for your crew member that day needs to have one and needs to be able to fit the decor into that mode of transportation. A reliable phone that is charged is another thing you will need. And that makes one of those functional tool choices as a first purchase being a portable charger, because you do not want the phone dying in the middle of the day when the planner is trying to get a hold of you and make sure reception is done, okay? So that brings us to a nice little wrap up of things you actually need in order to start this business, which are legal business entity in the state, business insurance, working phone, a vehicle or a friend with one who's working with you that day, a timeline of the wedding and for yourself with hard start and stop times about each zone that you're working in, and then a thorough checklist of your entire scope of work. Everything you need to bring that day, get done that day, and pack up that day, and who the pack up stuff is going to. And that is pretty much it. Other than that, you really are selling your ability to effectively execute all of those tasks in a timely manner, in a way that makes the entire wedding party happy, and you're selling your smooth, calm, cool, collected presence because you came prepared that day and you properly executed everything you were supposed to. That's the beauty of the business, is that as long as you have that knowledge space, you maintain that clear client and vendor communication, you are open and honest about your abilities and you don't overstretch yourself, especially in the beginning, then it really is a low overhead business that anybody can achieve, that anybody can do, and that anybody can put themselves out there and get clients. The real service you're selling is being the person everybody can turn to and depend on when the timeline gets tight and when things need to get finished. Think about it. What are 3 services you could already offer based off of what you already have, what you own, or what your client may have or own, and what they're renting? It's going to be a list that's longer than 3 things, I promise. If you want a refresher on some of this or a little more material, I did create a free business starter checklist for the wedding day. You can find that in the link down below, along with my wedding day survival kit and checklist. So go ahead and check those out. If you have any questions, want me to elaborate on anything I touched on today, feel free to drop a comment, leave me a message, and I will be back next week to answer another question about how to start a wedding setup business.